Have you ever been ready to throw away your whole beautiful life? Leave your family, friends, and hometown just for a man? I did. I am Emily, and I left my completely safe comfort zone in America, carrying a heart full of pink dreams about love, to fly halfway across the world to Vietnam. The 20-hour flight drained my energy, but it couldn't put out the fire of excitement in my chest. In my luggage were two huge suitcases filled with the most expensive gifts, carefully wrapped, that I spent months choosing for my future husband's family. When the taxi struggled through the tight corners of a crowded, narrow alley, my heart was pounding so fast. I closed my eyes and imagined a movie scene. A wide open door, gentle smiles, and a warm, tight hug to welcome the new daughter-in-law from far away. If you have ever crossed borders for love, you probably understand this extreme mix of nervousness and hope, right? But real life is not a movie, and the reality waiting for me behind that iron gate was a bucket of freezing cold water, poured right onto my most innocent dreams. The moment I stepped through the rusty, squeaky iron gate, I was immediately thrown into a completely alien world, a dimension so different it made it hard to breathe. The traditional house in front of me had a dark, ancient, and almost spooky feeling. The first thing that hit my eyes was a massive wooden ancestor altar, carved with dark, intimidating dragons. Thick smoke from incense drifted in the air, bringing a sharp, earthy smell straight into my lungs that made me a little dizzy because I wasn't used to it. But that smell wasn't the scariest part. The scariest part was the wall of people waiting for me. Dozens of relatives, aunts, uncles, and nosy neighbors were packed into the tiny living room. When I walked in, all conversations suddenly stopped dead. Dozens of sharp eyes pointed straight at me. They judged me, scanning me from the top of my head down to my heels, whispering to each other as if I were some weird alien who just dropped into their living room. My freedom, my liberal spirit, and my proud confidence as an independent Western girl, in just a split second, were completely crushed by the overwhelming, heavy atmosphere of traditional Asian culture. I felt myself shrinking, shaking, and extremely lost. And then, the crowd parted. The main character of this house officially appeared. My mother-in-law, Madame Lan. In America, even if it is the first time meeting, we always welcome each other with bright smiles and warm, tight hugs to show friendliness. Carrying that habit, I stepped forward innocently, flashing my brightest smile, opening my arms wide, getting ready to hug her. But the second I stepped closer, Madame Lan immediately took a sharp step back, as if I carried a disease. She crossed her arms over her chest, creating a physical wall, and stood incredibly stiff. There was no hug at all, not even a tiny smile. Her eyes were cold, judging, and full of thorns. She looked straight into my face, and then her eyes slowly slid down, stopping for a long time on my V-neck t-shirt and ripped jeans, which I had proudly thought were very stylish before I left. Her face hardened, her wrinkles pushing together, not hiding her deep annoyance, judgment, and complete disappointment. In that moment, even though no one said a single word, a freezing shock ran down my spine. I swallowed hard, bitterly realizing that I had just committed a fatal cultural mistake in the very first second we met. The terrifying silence lasted for a few seconds before being broken by a harsh sound. Instead of answering my awkward smile with a simple hello, Madame Lan snapped her face to the side. She started talking rapidly, firing a stream of fast Vietnamese right at Minh's face. Her tone was aggressive, pitching up and down, matched with angry tongue-clicking and sharp, glaring frowns. I stood frozen in place, confused and invisible. I didn't understand a single word coming out of her mouth, but her body language, her tone, and her side eyes were screaming with anger and disgust. A feeling of helplessness choked my throat. I turned to Min, giving him a begging, desperate look, pleading with my man to explain what was happening. Min looked incredibly panicked, sweat beading on his forehead. He quickly grabbed my freezing hand, gave a pitiful, forced smile, and whispered in my ear, "It's okay, babe. Mom just said you must be tired from the long flight. She told you to go rest." It was ridiculous. A woman doesn't need to understand the language to smell hostility. My sharp intuition screamed that it was a complete, clumsy lie from Min to cover up the harsh insults his mother just dumped on my head. Even though I was panicked and confused, I told myself I couldn't give up. I still tried to save this terrible first impression by using my final weapon. With shaking hands, I opened my suitcase and carefully took out the premium Korean ginseng boxes and the incredibly expensive health supplements I had hunted down in America. Trying to remember the articles about Asian culture I had quickly read online, I bowed deeply, using both hands to offer the gift to Madame Lan, with all the deepest, most nervous respect I could show. Madame Lan glanced at the bright red boxes. She reached out and took them, but with an attitude so careless and cold, it was cruel. She didn't even care to open them to see what was inside, nor did she bother to say a fake thank you. She held them like she was holding a pile of trash paper, and then tossed them down with a loud clack onto the glass tea table. That dry sound echoed through the living room. Right after that, she clicked her tongue and let out a heavy, tired sigh. Through my stinging eyes, I saw her mumble a short Vietnamese sentence to Min. It wasn't until months later, when my Vietnamese got better, that I learned the true meaning of those bitter words. These Western girls, they really have no manners at all. All my preparation, all my sweaty efforts to please her were thrown straight into the trash without mercy in that exact second. My body was falling apart from jet lag, and the massive mental shock left me almost drained. I quietly excused myself to the relatives and dragged my heavy feet upstairs to hide in the small bedroom. As soon as I dropped onto the strange, rock-hard mattress, I only wished I could close my eyes and sleep deeply to escape this cruel reality. But the bedroom door suddenly opened. Min walked in, his face showing clear stress, exhaustion, and defeat. He collapsed onto the edge of the bed, burying his face hard in his hands. Without looking me in the eye, he hesitated, struggling to pass on his mother's final sentence. "Emily, Mom just said, she wants you to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow. You have to go with her to the traditional wet market out there to learn how to bargain and buy fresh food," she said. "It is the family rule, an unbreakable rule. The new daughter-in-law must do this." I froze, glancing at the clock on my phone. It was already past 1 a.m. My eyes burned, my heart squeezed like someone was crushing it. The survival war in this suffocating house didn't end after the greetings. The truth is, the most cruel curtain had just opened. "Tell me, what would you do if you were pushed into my situation at exactly 5 a.m. tomorrow? Accept it and bow your head, or fight back?"